Hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone is doing great. Um, we're live this morning. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. I appreciate everyone for being here, supporting the channel, subscribing, being kind in the comments. I love that I have kind people in the comments. I appreciate that more than you guys know. It's important. Yes, it is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get through everything we need to get through. I hope everyone's enjoying their morning, their day. I'm going to go ahead and get through my disclaimer. I wanted to go live early because I have a lot of things to take care of today. So it's important. The early morning works really well for me. Midday, 10, 11, the numbers are amazing at 10 and 11, but I can't do 10 and 11. Okay. Let's get through the disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. Okay. So come on in, come on in. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. I hope everyone's well. What we're going to do an update on what's going on in the news. There's a lot that's going on. We're almost towards the end. What will happen? What will transpire? Do people feel that he will be found guilty, not guilty? A lot of people are chiming in on, the jury getting their instruction. They're seeking that the judge pretty much throw everything out. Diddy's attorneys feel like what he's being charged with for this trial, they haven't met that. Diddy's team decided not to call any witnesses on their side, which everyone was surprised about. Yes, they were. They were surprised that they didn't call any witnesses, but that was Diddy's choice, Diddy's team's choice. Of course, the judge asked Diddy yesterday, does he plan on testifying? And he said no, he will not be testifying, which is his choice. Many people were surprised that he wasn't going to testify, which is his choice. And the judge made it very clear, okay, I'm to understand you don't want to testify and you have your choice in that. And they said no, they're not. He will not take the stand. So, which is cool because many people felt that people would ask, well, hello, if, and it could just be general. If your daughter worked at a place and they expected your daughter or family member to stay up 5, 6 hours, or if somebody was dating your family member, would you want them dealing with the same situation? And he would probably say no. He'd probably say no. So I'm trying to fix this. Hold on one second. Maybe if it goes this way. But yeah, everyone has to think of this being like a work related situation. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, and like I said before, he's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. It is up to the judge and the jury to decide if there's any wrongdoing, period. Many people have been giving their opinions, and we get it. But there's a lot going on here. Will he be home before the 4th of July? Will the judge, make a decision? Will the courts make a decision? Meaning the jurors. But yeah, will he end up home before the holiday weekend? People are wondering. But then other people are stating that they feel that they've met and they see certain charges that have applied to what's been going on. Some people feel that some of the charges match what's going on. Okay, so we're going to get to some of the clips in regards to what the news has to say. He did tell the judge, you're doing a great job. The judge was very clear. Do you understand the instructions? Are you on any substances? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You have the ability where you can take the stand. Do you understand what that means? And Diddy was like, no, I don't want to take the stand. So the judge clarified over and over again, you have a choice to take the stand, and Diddy did not want to take the stand, which is his right. So him chiming in and telling the judge, you're doing a great job, people were kind of surprised about that. Was he trying to do it like he normally does, show his charm? But okay, let's get to some of the clips of what's going on. Like the videos, you guys come in, and let's get to it. Let's get to it.
Our viewers, so many compliments for you. So many compliments. And a lot of people worried about you. Worried, are you having enough to eat? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you staying cool in the heat? So many concerned citizens that we have out there for Elizabeth Milner. But Elizabeth, you're doing a great job. Happy to have you on. Okay, so we begin the day with the continued cross-examination of this Homeland Security Investigations agent, this summary witness for the prosecution, who literally condensed a vast amount of digital evidence into these summary charts. And first talk to me about what the defense had to say about messages of Jane, alleged victim 2 in this case. Remember, prosecutors say that Combs used force, fraud, or coercion to induce Jane into engaging in sex acts with male performers, that these happen in all different locations. There was a lot made about her messages, and I guess the idea is she actually a victim of sex trafficking?
Yeah, there were a lot of text messages that were read out loud to the jury once again. And I was kind of wondering, Timmy Garrigo said that the rest of her cross-examination would be maybe an hour to an hour and a half. No, it was a few hours as far as just finishing off the cross-examination for Special Agent Joseph Sorsilio. And so as far as just the messages that go between Jane and Sean Combs, Jane and Escort, again, it was just a lot of messages. But as far as the ones between Jane and Sean Combs, aka PT, aka Diddy, all of that stuff, the defense was talking about how these alleged instances, that being the text messages that were read aloud in court, were actually coming after instances of alleged sex trafficking, according to the government's chart. Their chart all mapped out was that there were these particular dates, flights that were associated with it, the financial records also associated with it. But the defense was kind of like, well, she's saying that she had a good night or she had a good time, those types of things. So, for example, there was one text message that was read out loud. It was around Christmas Eve. Didn't quite catch what year it was, but Sean Combs is saying to Jane that SHIT was so effing sexy, and Jane responds, it keeps getting better. There was so much sexual tension. Did you love it, baby? And Sean Combs responds, I loved it. And then Jane is responding, sheesh, and she puts a whole bunch of emojis in these text messages. There were other text messages from April 4th of 2022 between Jane and Sean Combs, where Jane is saying, so what do you want to do? I'm horny AF. And Sean Combs responds, I've been having fantasies about you and Leo. And Jane says, I haven't had you all the...
And see, that's the one thing in regards to relationships. You're going to kind of go back and forth. Diddy wanted these women to want him. He didn't want these women to be with somebody else. He wanted to be able to pick and choose if they were with somebody else. And allegedly, he was utilizing the money. These women did not have the money to pay for the workers. I'll call them workers. The women didn't have money for that because Cassie didn't even have money. Remember how Diddy, this is the sad part. Remember how allegedly he's told Cassie, I'm gonna put out the tapes. I'm gonna show people who you really are. Diddy asked Cassie's family for the money because Cassie wanted to be with somebody else. Cassie didn't have the money to pay that money. And then allegedly Cassie's family paid it and then he gave the money back. So it was all a part of control because you figure she had a lot of money. She not paying for those workers. She wasn't paying for those workers. And it don't seem like, it seemed like Jane, she was also seeking the money for the rent. He would hold that over her head. So he loved to control what was happening, how it was happening, who was chosen, the different outfits, the location, the money issue, the transfer issue, and the substance issue. That's huge. Any job, anybody that's going to at 9, 10, 11, afternoon shift, 3 o'clock, do you want to set things up for your boss as an FO? No. This is a huge HR issue. This is a huge union issue. Do you want to go into a hotel and clean up? Some of the workers were saying they didn't know what was actually happening in the rooms, but you saw what was happening because you had to clean it up, which is nasty. This is a music producer asking assistants to clean up after his FO stuff. And then allegedly seeing what Cassie sometimes would go through in regards to her having to cover things up with her makeup. So that was huge and concerning. So concerning. I just don't get why people are acting like how he how he acted
Trial for Sean.
in these relationships weren't concerning. They were. They were. They were. Okay, so let's go back.
Combs did not take the stand and very little evidence presented to jurors. Combs telling the judge it was his choice alone to testify or not testify on his behalf, and he chose not to testify. In just a moment, we're going to be joined by ABC News legal contributor Bernardo Villalona to dig deeper into everything that unfolded today in court. But first up, Darla Miles with a recap from Lower Manhattan.
After 28 days of testimony about freak-offs, Wild King nights, and hotel nights, jurors...
Like the video, like the video. Please double tap the screen, you guys. We got about 98 people in the building. Please double tap the screen to hit the like. It actually lets people know we're live, and it puts us in the algorithm. Yes, 98 people. Double tap the screen, please. Thank you.
seeing photos of baby oil, 7-inch heels, and a variety of drugs from the days-long sexual encounters with male escorts, federal prosecutors resting their case against Sean Diddy Combs Tuesday afternoon. Back in May, federal prosecutors set out to prove sex trafficking charges against Combs involving Cassie Ventura, an ex-girlfriend testifying under the name Jane, but a third alleged victim expected to testify, never taking the stand. This March 2016 video of Combs punching and kicking Ventura at an LA hotel played multiple times for the jury to try to show that Ventura felt threatened and coerced by Combs, and a security guard testifying that he took a $100,000 bribe to bury the surveillance video. A major part of the case against Combs involved his chief of staff and members of the security team, who prosecutors alleged were part of a conspiracy and support account of racketeering. They didn't testify either. Christina Coram mentioned more than 175 times during the trial. Singer and musician Scott Mescudi testifying about a failed Molotov cocktail that burned his Porsche and believed Combs is responsible. Brianna Bungalin, a friend of Ventura, testifying Combs caused this injury to her knee by dangling her over a 17th floor balcony. Defense attorneys not calling one witness, instead delivering brutal and sometimes humiliating cross-examinations to point out inconsistencies, and also delivering what Judge Arun Samaradian once called a real Perry Mason moment. Sean Combs, for the first time, standing up to address the court when asked, "Do you understand that as a criminal defendant, you have the right to testify if you wish to testify?" Combs responded,
This is where he's talking with the judge. Like the video, fair use reaction clip.
"Yes, Your Honor. Is it your decision not to testify in this case?" Combs saying, "That is solely my decision." Now, closing arguments are scheduled for Thursday. Both sides say it will take 4 hours.
All right, thanks to Darla Miles for that recap. Join now,
Closing arguments going to take 4 hours. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
as always, by ABC News legal contributor Bernardo Villalona. Bernardo, great to see you.
Good to see you, Mike.
All right, so we're approaching the end of this whole thing,
Yes.
which is kind of hard to believe when you think back to 6 weeks ago when this all kicked off. Let's pick up right where Darla left us here, because how all this is going to play out moving forward. Closing arguments. So
Good
important.
morning.
4 hours each side, but we think this is going to be stretched over 2 days.
Yeah, so let's start off. So Wednesday, which is tomorrow, the jury's not going to come to the courthouse. Instead, that time is going to be spent on going over to what the jury instructions are going to be with the attorneys and the judge. So they're going to come in on Thursday, the jury. They're supposed to come in by 8:45 and hoping to start at 9 o'clock with an end time of 5 o'clock. So in terms of how closing arguments happens, the prosecution is going to give an initial closing argument, and then the defense is going to give their closing argument. They expect their closing argument to last about 4 hours. The judge said that he'll probably give breaks every 2 hours to give a break to the jury and then probably take a short lunch break, which he provides lunch for the jury so they don't have to exit the courthouse, and also to speed things up. After that, the prosecution is supposed to come back on rebuttal with their main closing argument, where they're really going to take their time out to rebut what the defense said and also bring out some more evidence that they did it initially. And they expect that to probably trickle into Friday. So while they will get started on Thursday, they're not going to finish until Friday. Depending on what time they finish on Friday, the judge is going to give the jury instructions to this jury. And again, that can last a few hours. I assume it's going to last at least 2 hours or so, those jury instructions, because the instructions are very lengthy. Now, after that, the judge will have the decision to make as to whether he's going to let the jury begin deliberations on Friday. I think it's going to depend on what time they finish on Friday, because what the judge doesn't want to happen, that the jury starts deliberating on Friday, something happens over the weekend, and one of those sitting 12 jurors can no longer sit on the trial. And guess what happens if the defense is not willing to substitute that juror, because now the defense will have to consent to it, and it's not in the prerogative and the discretion of the judge anymore. If the defense says, no, I'm not going to substitute that juror, then it's an automatic mistrial. So what the judge will likely do is that if it ends, say he finishes jury instructions around 2 or 3 o'clock, he may say, jury, I'm going to allow you to start fresh on Monday morning, and that way on Monday morning the judge can say, now you have the case, so you can deliberate the sitting 12 jurors, and likely the defense is going to say to dismiss the alternate jurors, so there will no longer be alternate jurors and everything.
That's good to know about the general breakdown of the jurors and what the judge may or may not do and let it go into the weekend. Let's continue. Fair use, ration clip.
It's going to be in the hand of those sitting 12 jurors. And after that, Mike, who knows what's going to happen or how long it's going to take for this jury to reach a decision, if they can reach a decision as to any of the 5 counts.
That's an important point, too, because
Right.
it could be a hung jury. It could. So we'll see how it shakes out. So interesting. So it sounds like likely the deliberations will probably not begin until next week.
Yes, it's quite possible.
Which leads into the 4th of July.
And just remember, they're not working. The courthouse is closed July 3rd and July 4th. So it's really Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for deliberations. We're all hoping, remember when the judge instructed the jury and the judge stated to these jurors that the case will likely be done before the 4th of July. So you don't want to run into a problem where if they don't have a verdict by Wednesday and all of a sudden one of the jurors says, well, I have plans, and you said that it wasn't going to go past this date. So the hope is from everyone, especially with so many vacations coming up, that the jury has a decision by Wednesday.
So the last items that the jury heard before the closing were what? What did the defense, because, a lot of people said, the defense didn't even really put on a case. They introduced some text messages in the evidence. They didn't call a witness. What did the defense do? The prosecution rested this morning.
Yes, so the prosecution rested. Well, we went into like the 1 o'clock hour, almost 2 o'clock hour before the prosecution actually rested their case. So in terms of what happened, the prosecution still had that summary witness, that special agent who testified, and the defense went through several hours and hours of putting in additional text messages, or actually highlighting text messages for this jury. But remember, the reason that they're doing it, though, is because they weren't going to call their summary witness on their case. So instead, they decided to bring out these messages or these documents or these invoices that they wanted to highlight through the prosecution's own case. So eventually, cross-examination ended. The prosecutor was able to redirect that special agent and actually kind of drop a bomb on the defense in the sense of, because the defense ended their cross-examination talking about and highlighting that Sean Combs paid for some of these expenses or reimbursed the company out of his own money. But if you read it that way, then what it means is that you paid for this transportation to engage in prostitution. So it's like, wait, why would you ask that as a defense attorney? So the prosecution was able to capitalize on those last couple of statements, even though the objection was sustained, but the message was already put forth in front of that jury. After redirect, the prosecution rested. And the judge.
What was that moment like, though? Because
because right away, because I knew the prosecution was going to say that they rest their case, so right away I'm looking at the jury just to see what their facial reactions were going to be, and it's like, okay, they rested.
Were you guys happy with how the case presented? Were you guys happy about the information, how the raid happened? Do you think they should have had more famous people take the stand? Do you think they should have had more business partners take the stand? Do you think that they should have had the driver, his bodyguards take the stand, current and old? What do you guys think about how they presented? Did you guys feel you were happy about hearing the information after his homes got raided? Let's continue. Fair use, ration clip.
So after that, the judge took a break and they did what's called a Rule 29 hearing, in a sense of that the defense was requesting for a motion.
Nobody is obsessed with anything. This is YouTube. Do you understand what YouTube is? We conversate about what's going on in the news. Go do your own page. Go talk about cakes and grass or whatever. We're helping people that's in a bad situation. It's too early in the morning for people to be acting weird. This is what YouTube is. Real talk. This is one of the biggest trials. There's many trials that's going on. You go listen to a different trial. Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip.
For an acquittal, meaning that the prosecution hasn't made out any of the 5 counts, and because they haven't made out the 5 counts, that the judge should dismiss those counts, and those counts shouldn't go before the jury to deliberate. You got to think, if you get any of those counts dismissed by the judge, it's a win right there. But what the judge said is that despite the arguments that were made, and despite that the prosecution said, look, we rest on the record, that he is going to reserve his decision for after the jury returns a verdict, because if the jury returns a verdict, either way, it's like, okay, you saved my job, from making a decision on that. After a break, we return to the courtroom, and the defense starts reading, well, even before we go there, the judge asked Sean Combs.
Be kind in the comments. I'll time people out, or YouTube will time people out. So be kind in the comments. I've said it before. He's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. A judge, jury's going to have to decide if there's any wrongdoing on his side. It's not up to me. If the jury finds him guilty, not guilty, that's going to be what we conversate about too. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Allocated Sean Combs to ask him, do you wish to testify on your own defense?
No, he said like a Perry Mason moment. Like what they say it was dramatic, right? So
it was dramatic, and the reason why it was dramatic because remember, at no point during the trial you don't get to hear Sean Combs speak. He's not addressing
just
the
recording,
judge.
not
exactly.
In person, yeah.
So this is the first time that you get to hear him speak, and this is not in front of the jury. The jury is in their room, they're eating their lunch. This is out of the presence of the jury, and the judge asks Sean Combs, "Do you understand that you have the right to testify in your own defense? That it is your decision and your decision alone as to whether you want to testify." Has asked him, "Have you taken any narcotics or alcohol within the last 48 hours? Are you waiving this right knowingly and intelligently, like you understand that you're waiving this right?" And even before he answered that, Sean Combs took it upon himself to thank the judge for how he's presided over this case. And then,
I told y'all he was thanking the judge. He likes to, show a certain side of him. I'm grateful. Thank you. You're doing a good job. Trying to work a person. Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Just him thanking the judge and saying you're doing a good job. That's the same thing he did with those assistants, with the relationships. Trying to show you, oh, I'm a decent dude, a cool dude. I'm kind, considerate. But on the back end, they were using substances, and certain stuff made them a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
and he went to answer the questions that this is my choice and I solely waive this right. I do not wish to testify. I have spoken to my attorneys and I'm making this decision out of my own free will.
How did he sound?
Very confident, very confident. It wasn't like his voice was cracking at all, very loud. He projected, he's standing up before the judge. He didn't even need a microphone.
How tall is he?
So I'm 5'8".
Yeah.
I would say maybe he's like 5'9" or 5'10". Okay. He's not that tall.
Okay, but he was projecting.
He was projecting, yeah. He was projecting, speaking loud, speaking confident, like he's confident in his case.
Okay.
So after that's done, then we take a break. And now before the jury, now the defense is asked whether they will be putting any evidence into their case in chief. And in the sense of what evidence that they put forward, instead what they did is that they read out a stipulation. So what's a stipulation? An agreement between the prosecution and the defense that if a certain witness were to be called, they would testify as to the...
There's about 200 in the building. Please subscribe. We're trying to hit 39K. Please subscribe. If everyone, please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 39K. We'll hopefully hit that by the end of the month. Please continue to double tap the screen. To hit the like button and double tap the screen, that's free. Super chats are welcome though. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. But subscribe and thank you.
Or stipulation as to a certain fact. So a few of them had to deal with the inconsistencies of several of the witnesses. So, for example, Mia had met with the prosecution on numerous occasions and at the very beginning never mentioned that Sean Combs had sexually assaulted her, at least for the first 3 times that she met with the prosecution. Also having to deal with Capricorn Clark, that when she met with the prosecution, she didn't make mention of calling Lauren London at the time when they were at Kid Cudi's house. Another thing with the escort who had testified that he had stated he had a crush on Cassie Ventura. So small little things to be able to argue during closing arguments as to the credibility of these witnesses. Like, look at these inconsistencies. When they met with law enforcement, this is what they said, which is contrary to what they stated on the stand. And then after that, looked at the jury and says, the defense rests.
When they're reading all these text messages, what is the jury? Because a lot of this they've heard at least themes of it, but
Mike, this was dragging.
It's dragging on.
It was dragging for hours.
Okay.
Mike, it was dragging for hours.
Too long.
And people got tired of that. They got tired of the repetitive conversations. They got tired of the repetitive messages. People were frustrated that let's move on. It's almost like you guys want us to be bored with it. People were saying they were bored recently, because it's the over and over again. And then allegedly they were saying the paralegal had already read the messages, and then they were asking her to read them again, and she kind of like almost allegedly got frustrated, said, I already did that. So people got frustrated of the repetitiveness. Also, people got tired of the assistants conversations being similar. When they wanted the bodyguard, they wanted the driver, they wanted his co-conspirator to take the stand, they wanted people who he dated after Cassie. it's very interesting that a lot of this is pertaining the assistant and Cassie and some of the other women he dated and had FOs with. And now they're trying to call them versus FOs. They're trying to call them King something, whatever. They're trying to change the name. So the conversation in itself, you got to remember, he's an employer asking employees to do XYZ. People have had jobs. You wouldn't want your niece or your mom to be associated with this type of stuff. Having people stay up for several days. The one guy said he stayed up for several days. The one girl said she stayed up for 4 to 5 days. That is so unhealthy to put people through that. To ask a woman to sleep with another man while you're off in a corner. Let's continue. Fair use. There's about 268 in the building. Can I please get 200 people to please subscribe and thank you? We're trying to hit 39K and 1 million by the end of the year. Yes, we are. We have millions of views every 30 days. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Do you think that was a miscalculation?
It was for hours.
Yes.
Hours. I'm not talking
Hours.
about minutes. I'm talking about hours just sitting there. And it's like reading text messages, showing invoices. Okay, let me start my morning by watching some porn because they started watching some freak off videos first thing this morning. Like, here's your morning breakfast.
Right, for the summary.
Yeah, first thing this morning was like, well, let's just start off by watching some videos this morning. And they watched several videos throughout the cross-examination yesterday as well as today.
Yeah.
So again, the defense wants to highlight their theme that the sex that was engaged in by Jane was all consensual. Also by explicit text messages where she's expressing her love and her enthusiasm to engage in these hotel nights, these sexual acts.
And messages that included the emoji.
Yeah, or eggplant emoji. Yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of water emojis.
Good morning, Paris. I hope it's not buffering. Good morning. It's not buffering. Yes, good. Good morning. I hope all is well. I hope all is well. We missed you. But I probably stayed on another 30 minutes after you left. Maybe another 30 minutes. But yeah, I'm glad it's not buffering. But everyone say good morning to Paris. She is my mod, my only mod. She's been with me for the last 9 or 10 months. Paris has been with me when I only had about 3,000 to 4,000 subscribers. Now we're almost at 39K. Yes, thank you. Everyone say good morning, Paris. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Paris, we're almost at the end of this trial, girl. We were there when people were talking about the lawsuits. And that's the other thing in regards to the lawsuits. I'm hoping, and we've said this, if those allegations are true, because they're just allegations, like I said, even in regards to the lawsuits, a jury's going to have to decide if those lawsuits are factual. Do they have notes? Did they call the police? Did they go to see a therapist? What trail and what evidence do they have? Because a lot of lawyers are trying to sue this man, and they have a lot of clients that they're trying to, those are civil. Those are civil lawsuits. But there's a lot of civil lawsuits out there. So I think regarding this court case, many people thought it would be possibly about the alleged lawsuits, hearing from those people, hearing about different things with different celebrities. I think a lot of people thought that this would go a different way, but this trial and how they handled it is how they handled it. We can't, there's many trials that they've had, and what the expectation is and the evidence that they presented. Some are saying, oh, he just likes to spend quality time with his girls at a hotel. But should employees have to do that? Should employees be a part of that? Your music producer, why is there a huge focus on the concerns in the relationship and substances and people staying up? Huge HR concerns. And then check this out, y'all. I had said to y'all last week, where is the HR person? Where's the other person that's on their side? They allegedly was going to have someone that allegedly took care of like their HR concerns. We said it, but they decided not to put them on the stand. Diddy's team did not want to put anybody on the stand because guess what? How y'all cross-examined the people that testified against him, they were going to be just as harsh if Diddy was going to put people up to speak on his behalf. They were going to just go in. Yeah. They were supposed to have someone that dealt with HR concerns. I think it was probably, yeah, an expert. An expert. Um, but I think it was both. I think it was an HR person and an expert. And they did not want to put them on the stand because with the HR person, they would have said, did Cassie, even being her girlfriend, but she was working with Diddy, did Cassie mention the concerns? Did you see Cassie's concerns of her covering up with makeup? Did you realize that he had allegedly what happened at the hotel? Did she mention what happened that she didn't want to speak to the police? Did you see the concerns in regards to the spots on her body? Did you know that he had asked Cassie's family to give him money so he wouldn't put out the tape? And then I think he threatened other people that he was going to put the tape out on them. So be careful who you date because they'll want to put a tape out on you. Yes, that's a concern. So you're dating somebody that's expecting you to do this, tape it, and then he threatens you that he gonna put it out. Where they do that at? So people were surprised that Diddy's side didn't put anybody on the stand because the cross-examine for them would have been as brutal. Because we said that weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Do y'all see how these people are being cross-examined like they're the ones in jail? He's in jail. He had an obligation to his employee and to his girlfriend on what that situation should be like. No employer should be asking an employee to take a substance. And that's the biggest thing. There's substances here. Checking in under a different name, cool. Cleaning up so the paparazzi don't see, okay. Getting substances and then having employees pick up those substances, and allegedly they had to take turns picking up the substances. Not only street stuff, but there was other stuff that was prescribed. And that's the other thing. Where's those doctors at that subscribed that stuff? Where they at? Why didn't they take the stand? But I guess it was good enough to see that there was things at the home. There was pictures of what those substances were, what the name and the label was. But that pharmacist, that doctor should have been on that stand as well. They cut down other people to testify. They cut down the list. And then Diddy's side had no one to take the stand. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. So concerning.
Like all types of emojis. And Teddy Garagos, as she's questioning the special agent, like she's saying, like there's an eggplant emoji, there's this type of emoji, there's a heart emoji, there's a sweating emoji, there's a little devil emoji. Like you heard of all these emojis.
Right.
It's on the record.
The defense is trying to show that this was a consensual
relationship. But remember that when you're dealing with Jane in this specific case, it's difficult to really analyze her because while on the stand she's saying now that no, she didn't want to engage in these sexual acts, that she just wanted to please her lover, and this is what her lover wanted, and if she didn't do it, she didn't want to upset him. Then the question is, but yeah, that's what was going on in your mind, but what were you expressing to Sean Combs? And that's why I think the prosecution is going to have a huge hurdle to overcome when it comes to Jane, as opposed to Cassie, because you know Cassie was getting beaten on a regular basis. And that infamous Intercontinental video, that while people say this is a domestic violence case, let's take it a step back, because what we learned through trial testimony is that there was an escort inside of that hotel room, and that she was engaging in one of these freak-offs, and that she left after she was struck, and Sean Combs wanted her to engage in that freak-off, and that's why he was dragging her back.
Well, let's fast forward to the point of deliberations, and it's going to be a question I'm probably going to ask a couple different times here, but as the jurors get in that room, and the door closes, theoretically, for the first time, this is the time where they're supposed to talk.
This is the first time when all 12 can stop talking about the weather and how hot it is outside, and instead talk about, okay, let's talk about the evidence. What do you think about Cassie? What do you think about Jay?
So much evidence. So what do they do first?
So the first thing that's going to happen is that they have to elect.
This is important. This is a good question. Let's listen. Please subscribe. If you already subscribed, thank you. Please continue, hit the like button. Please continue, hit the like button. There's about 209 in the building. Can I please get 200 people to double tap the screen? Double tap the screen to hit the like. Thank you. That's one way to freely support the channel. Let's get the likes up. It helps me in the algorithm. I'm bringing y'all TTT every day, sometimes twice a day. So please subscribe and please hit the like. We're at 34 likes. We should be at 100 already. We should be at 100. Let's get the likes up. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get the likes up. Okay, let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
select a four-person. Who's going to be the four-person out of those 12 jurors? And remember the makeup of the jury right now, it's 8 males and 4 females. So who will they elect to be the four-person? Remember, the four-person doesn't have more power, more decision-making than the other jurors. The four-person is the person that may lead the discussion. And if there are any jury notes, the four-person has to sign the jury note and give it to the court officer. And also that when a verdict is announced, it'll be that four-person that will be announcing the verdict for this jury. But really, in terms of what happens, it depends on
Good morning.
the prosecution. How do you lay it out and give directions to this jury? So when I was a prosecutor, I was prosecuted for 16 years. 10 of those years was just like homicide cases. And I would start off by telling this jury, this is what you're going to do. This is what you were selected. Like, you should be deciding this 1, 2, 3. These are the issues that you need to decide.
Good
Take out
morning.
outside noise. You were selected for this specific reason. Now, when you go inside of the jury deliberation room, this is how you should approach this case. So if they want to do racketeering conspiracy, decide, was there an enterprise? Who was part of that enterprise? Okay, now that you got that, let's deal with the predicate acts. Let's leave the sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. Let's put that aside for now. And let's deal with the predicate acts that don't have to deal with Cassie and Jane, because you have to agree just on 2 predicate acts. And you can do that without even evaluating Cassie and Jane. Or they can say, let's go straight into transportation to engage in prostitution. All right, so here are the receipts, here are the invoices, here are the text messages, here are the photos, here are the escorts, and all you need is just one that you bought across straight lines in order to meet the transportation to engage in prostitution. 1 count for Cassie, 1 count for Jane.
As they're talking about all this, they have to send a note to get the evidence into the room, though, right? They don't go in there with any piece
So
of
it
evidence.
depends. It depends on what the judge wants to do. So some judges say, if the jury asks for the evidence, do I have the consent of the parties just to send all the evidence back there, with the exception of the firearms. The firearms will never be left inside of the deliberating room. A court officer will have to come in there and display the firearm. I highly doubt they're going to ask about that firearm. But in terms of everything else, it depends on whether the judge is just going to straight out from the beginning just give them all the evidence and give them the transcript, because the transcript is going to tell us a lot. Because
Yes, that transcript is going to break down a lot. Something that they might have forgot and they didn't take notes on. But I'm sure they are so done with those messages, because it seems as if the messages was so repetitive. The video stuff was so repetitive for those jurors. But having those transcripts, if there's something that they forgot, and asking, what did Cassie say? What did Mia say? What did Jane Doe say? They'll have access to those transcripts, baby. That's going to be interesting. There's a lot of information that's been piled on for the last 4 weeks. The jurors have a really big job. And if hopefully there's going to be somebody that's controlling, well, do y'all remember this? Do y'all remember that? Do you remember this? And they can conversate and break it down and have access to get the transcripts if they forgot something or didn't understand something. And if they didn't take notes, that's a major, having those transcripts. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for saying hello. I appreciate you. Thank you, Paris, for saying hello for me. You know I'll be in the zone. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
usually when it comes to jury deliberations for a trial that has lasted multiple weeks, jurors want to hear the testimony again, or certain parts of the testimony. So these jurors...
In certain situations, when I'm listening to certain law pages, certain people say allegedly. Allegedly, I can't confirm or deny, but what I'm hearing, they don't feel that he's going to walk free. Allegedly, people feel that he's going to be charged with something. Allegedly, that's what a lot of the law pages I listen to. And maybe it's about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I may fast forward it, because I have such a busy schedule. But I try and listen to people that are credible and that don't do clickbait. But some are saying that there's definite possibility, allegedly. And the jury may say no. But see, there was something that I listened to. If the jurors can't decide, I don't want to say stuff I can't confirm, but from what I'm hearing, it's going to be interesting of the mistrial, and that they're asking the judge to throw it all out because they haven't proven the RICO. But I think they've done well. Could I have done better? Yes. Would I have called certain people? Yes. Even if they're saying KK wouldn't have helped the case, still put her on. KK should have been there, alleged. And then what's the other guy? There's another person that should have took the stand. Even though if you feel that they can't help your case, I would have made those people get on the stand. And then remember how, this is the other concern. Remember how the one girl's MIA? Oh, so you can just be MIA and not follow that you've been summoned to court? There's so many concerns with this case. them asking for a mistrial. But the jurors have a lot of stuff to gather, and they may just be over it. They may be over it. If they make a decision by Friday, they said he better hang his coat up. They're going to want them to come back on Monday and give it more time. If they come back Friday, they're just over it and done with it. Real talk. Real talk. They come back on Friday and they've looked at stuff. There's a concern there. But a lot of law places that I listen to and people I listen to, they're saying they feel that there's enough evidence in regards to certain things for him to be charged with something. And then if that is the case, will they go after KK? Will they go after other people? And then if he is found guilty in certain situations, they're going to strip a lot of his money, baby. That's why they're trying so hard to have a mistrial, putting the mistrial request, saying to the judge, they haven't proven anything, judge, throw this out. They're asking the judge to throw this out. Yes. Let's continue. Fair use ration clip.
Were allowed to take
So
notes
much
throughout
stuff.
the trial. So they have their juror notebooks, so they have the notes that they have taken, but not everybody remembers things the same way or takes notes the same way. So
yeah, so much that hasn't been exposed. And we talked about a lot of that stuff 8 or 9 months ago. And not calling any of his celebrity friends. And also, Parrish, catch this tea. Remember how, that Wednesday or Thursday, they were deliberating, they did sidebars, they were trying to protect that other celebrity. So is that other celebrity a possibility of having his own situationship? Why were they trying so? And other names were mentioned. Other names were mentioned. Why were they trying so hard to protect that other celebrity that did an FO? There's a reason, and many people are questioning that. There's a reason. There's a reason they're trying to protect certain celebrities and not other celebrities. That's a big side eye. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
what's going to command is the transcript itself, because the transcript is what is accurate. So many questions. It all depends how the judge wants to run his courtroom, whether he sends the evidence back, does he send the transcript back, does he send the jury instructions back? Because that's another issue. Do you want the judge to read it, or are you just going to give them the entire stack of what you read to them and let them figure it out?
Right, and when you're talking about 2 hours, that's a lot to go through.
It's a lot. It's a lot to go through. Personally, as an observer, just because I want to be nosy, I'm like, judge, don't send anything back, because I just want to know what the notes are, so I can try to figure out, read the tea leaves of what's going on.
People have tried to figure it out in regards to them being famous, the woman's birthday, and then having a jet. They may not have a jet right now, but the time frame, people are trying to connect it to a certain rapper. Even though the courts may not want to say who the certain rapper is, we see how certain people treat their wives, and it's a concern. Birds of a feather. Birds of a feather. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Inside the deliberating room.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. And finally, for this conversation tonight, how will we sort of, and I know you never really know,
yes.
but when we're watching this play out, length of time, does that matter? What they're asking for, does that matter?
Oh, absolutely.
So how can we read what's going on without being in the room?
It's through the jury notes.
Yeah.
Through the jury notes. And just remember, with the jury notes, the judge is going to tell him, unlike the Karen Reed trial, that please do not put what the vote is or which side you're leaning to in terms of a verdict. Just ask the question without putting the actual vote on it. So if someone asks, what's the definition of reasonable doubt, right? Usually that's the side. Or can we use sex transportation to engage in prostitution as one of the predicate acts for the racketeering conspiracy? Like, all of that gives you some kind of insight. Or if they ask, can I read the direct examination of Cassie, not the cross-examination, right? It's like, oh, you just want the direct. That goes to the prosecution, right? Exactly. Or if they just want the cross-examination, it was like, well, someone's looking at something for the defense. You never know how many people in that jury room is thinking the same way. It could be one person. It could be 3, 4, 5. It could be all of them.
Yeah. And this is such a huge decision.
Good morning.
Decisions these 12 people will ever make.
Exactly. And that is something that the judge, as well as the parties, emphasize during jury selection. Like, are you up to the task? Like, I want you to be honest as to, are you able to reach a decision of this magnitude? Because it's one of the most important decisions, aside from having to deal with family or, important decisions about a health matter.
Well, we'll see how it all shakes out. Your perspective is always valuable. We appreciate you taking us.
Yeah, that's Eyewitness News. She don't play about everything. She literally breaks it down in a way that we understand what's being said. I love how she breaks things down because she talks about court, she talks about the juror, she talks about everything. Fair use reaction clip. Please like the video as you guys come in. There's about 130 something in the building. Please subscribe. We're trying to hit 39K.
House.
Fair
We
use.
think we may have lost her due to a technical issue. So do want to talk about what's amazing. I just want to sum up is she did a hit with us not too long ago, within the last hour and a half maybe, that the prosecution had wrapped up. And since that time, here's what we know that we can share with you. Sean Diddy Combs did address the court to say, I'm not going to testify. And now the defense has rested. No case of actual testimony presented. They were going to read some things into the record. Still with us, criminal defense attorney, former district attorney Matthew Mangino. I almost fell out of my chair. I did understand they said we're not going to present any witnesses. I'm surprised, but that was their choice. They were going to read some things into the record, but golly, that was really quick to go to the defense is done.
Yeah, I mean, it surprised me a bit, Judge Ashley. I mean, originally they had a whole list of witnesses, then they pruned that down a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're not going to put any evidence on at all. They must be pretty confident. You know, they banged away at the witnesses for the prosecution, and you know, I think they've tried to make this case more about consent than anything else. And hey, you know, Diddy's a bad guy, and we don't like Diddy, and you probably don't like Diddy, but he's not involved in racketeering. He's not involved in sex trafficking. That's not what this amounts to. So that must be their strategy.
And I do think they were smart to lean into it and even go further and say, yeah, it may have been a crime that he hit Cassie Ventura. And they admitted these are crimes. But to your point, not sex trafficking, they say, as well as the not racketeering. I want to read what Combs told the judge. Here's what he had to say. I'm doing great, Your Honor. I've been wanting to tell you thank you. You're doing an...
Yeah, so this is what Diddy had to say in court. Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Continue to hit the like button. Continue to hit the like button. And please subscribe. Thank you.
Excellent job. This is the first time I've seen these words. A little unusual, I think, for a defendant to thank the judge. And then we have Judge Submaramian saying, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, let's come out on that one, Matt. That seems a little unusual, but it might be keeping it with the personality of Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard a lot of strange things during the course of this trial. You know, this doesn't seem out of the norm for Diddy or other people that we see in front of at the court. You know, you're in some cases you're screaming at the judge and they have to take you out of the courtroom. And in this case, before a verdict even comes in, you're saying, thanks, you did a good job. But we'll see what he thinks about his job after the verdict comes in.
Yeah, after the...
Many people said this judge tried to be fair. Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue. Thanks for subscribing, you guys. Thank you. I can see the numbers going up. Thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Verdict. So let's talk about the two different charges. The trafficking charge, if the jury believes that any of the traveling, well, there was traveling across state lines. Does consent even matter? Because there were multiple witnesses who described getting all of the stuff, whether it was the drugs, whether it was the whatever product he wanted to have there, the Astroglide. They got it all to a hotel. They set it up. They transported sex workers to get there. Is that enough for the trafficking piece?
Well, I think that the prosecution in their closing argument is going to work backward. Okay, they're going to start with this promoting prostitution, and then you know that's been conceded here, and then work your way back and start building on the sex trafficking and the racketeering as it relates to that transportation of prostitution, because there's nobody contesting that issue. So I think that might be the way the prosecution approaches their closing in this case.
And that makes sense. It makes good sense. I know the prosecution is saying for the racketeering, the law says you have to have a criminal enterprise, but they did bring on different witnesses and different people, a personal assistant for the defendant who worked for him, to add that they were involved or their piece of the puzzle. So I think arguably a jury could find racketeering. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's going to come down to, in this case, and I don't always say this, that it comes down to the closing argument, but I think in this case, the prosecution, they have a lot of stuff out there that they presented to the jury. They got to connect all the dots now. And if they can connect all those dots, I think working back from the promoting prostitution, they just might get there with regard to the sex trafficking and ultimately the racketeering charge.
You know, every closing argument I've ever watched, which is many, many, many in my career, I've always thought if there could just be a simpler way to spoon feed the jury in their closing. Oh, I know, a demonstrative aid. This is what the law requires, and here's what we've proven with which piece of evidence. And I think they're going to really have to spoon feed it because these charges are complex. Even as attorneys, I've read over it and over it again to make sure I understand properly what the charge says. It's a lot for the jury.
I don't know. Like I said, he's innocent till proven guilty. I'm not a law page. I'm not a juror. People have felt that there may be things, and jurors may say they don't see it. They may say they don't see it. It might be because that they're over it, because they've been there. The messages stuff has been repetitive. Seeing these videos in the morning, that has to be concerning. So who knows? Some people may be shocked of the verdict. Some people may not be shocked. We'll see what happens. I like to listen to people that make sense. Law pages, news, that's what I like to listen to, where they can actually break it down. And that's why we do what we do over here in regards to getting information from the news. Some people are mad that other people aren't in the courtroom. None of us have to be in the courtroom to get the information. Sometimes I'll watch different pages that are doing the text messages, and if I'm in the car, I'll be listening there. So I'll be listening even when I don't want to listen. I'm still tuned in to what's going on in the courtroom. Real talk. And some people are mad. You guys are not in the courtroom, so we don't need to be. There's people that are texting that's in the courtroom. You know, and some people have done really well. There are YouTubers. I'm so proud of some of them. There's so many YouTubers that's doing different things outside the courtroom. And they're boosting their career because people see them as credible, not lying, not faking stories, not putting out wrong information, you know, not doing clickbait. So there's a lot of people that's done well from covering this trial. Proud of them. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
To decide. Let's listen to this. Talking about those witnesses, I want to listen to a testimony about getting drugs for P. Diddy.
Fair use reaction clip. Fair use reaction clip. Good morning. Good morning, Australia. Press 3 if you know where you're watching from. Press 3 if you know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and continue to hit the like, you guys. Let's get the likes to 100. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Oh.
After you obtained drugs for Mr. Combs, what typically did you do with them?
Either gave them directly to
I like the AI when the AI is speaking. Fair use reaction clip.
him or put them in his Gucci pouch.
What is the Gucci pouch?
It's just a place where we would keep drugs.
Who told you to put the drugs in the Gucci pouch?
Something I learned from former assistants.
Who did the Gucci pouch belong to?
Mr. Combs
Where did Mr. Combs keep the Gucci pouch?
kept it in a backpack or he kept it in his room or on his person.
Which staff members, if any, handled the Gucci pouch?
Assistants.
Did the security ever handle the Gucci pouch?
Not that I'm aware of.
Under what circumstances did the assistants handle the Gucci pouch?
Just whenever he'd ask for it.
Of course, those were AI generated. Those were not the actual voices. But we now have Kelly Craft there on the ground. Kelly, I feel like I blinked and it went from the prosecution rested to the defense is rested.
Hi there, Judge Ashley. Yes. So it was just about 3:07 that defense counsel began presenting its case, and then it was very short. They began doing some stipulations and then reading into the record just some evidence in regard to messages that particular Cassie Ventura sent. And so I can tell you about that in just a few minutes, but I do want to start with what you were mentioning, and this was the exchange between the judge and Sean Diddy Combs. And I kind of want to show you, if I can, as to what Sean Combs was doing when he stood up and he was talking to the judge, because of course there are no cameras inside the federal courtroom, so we are your eyes and ears from inside that courtroom. So kind of talking with you about his demeanor and what he was doing. Well, we have the full screen up for you now, so I can tell you what it says. He said, "I'm doing great, Your Honor. I've been wanting to tell you thank you. You're doing an excellent job." And the judge said, "Thank you. I do appreciate it." And when he was asking Sean, if you want to come back to me on camera, when he was asking Sean how he's feeling and if this was actually your decision, solely my decision, he was saying, he kind of like leaned in, Judge Ashley, when he was on the table. So he leaned in and then looked over at his attorneys and said, "It was my decision in conjunction with my attorney." So it was kind of an interesting moment that was inside that courtroom.
Wow, it's fascinating to hear some of those things that you get to see firsthand because, and why he worded it that way, maybe because the attorneys told him to. All right, what do we expect next, please, ma'am?
Well, so things hearings are over for the day here in Lower Manhattan. So the things that are going to be coming up next, the charge conference, and then, of course, closing arguments that are going to be taking place on Thursday, and then we're hearing Friday. And what we're hearing now is that the jury may not even begin their deliberations until Monday. So that is what we are hearing. We're still waiting for some confirmation on that, but
that's better for him if the jury do deliberate on Monday. Yes. Okay, you guys. So we got through everything that happened within the last few days. Today is Wednesday. So we got through what happened Monday and Tuesday. Today's Wednesday. So they did state that Diddy will not be taking the stand. Okay. I have things I have to do. I may try and go live again later on today around 2 or 3 or 4. Because whatever I have to do, I don't know the time frame it'll be done. So I will try and do another live later on this afternoon to talk about what happens in court. If there's a decision Friday, it may not look good for him. But if they're able to deliberate on Monday, that might look a little bit better, that they're taking their time and going through the evidence. So fair use, reaction clip. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. Yeah, it has been. And I can only imagine for the jurors, that's Paris. That's not getting paid a lot. Could you imagine being a single person and you're off work for the 3 weeks? I hope you've been stacking and saving. You can't live check to check going on no jury. But I can only imagine for the jurors, and they said, I don't know if you were here, Paris, they had said that they kept going over the messages over and over again. And then one time, first thing in the morning, they have to listen to FO situations. So the jurors, their lives may be forever changed. And some of them might need counseling after this, real talk. You know, will they do interviews? And who will they interview? And will they cover their face? And, you know, that's going to be interesting of what happens after a decision is made and when the jurors speak up and how it will be. We were exhausted. Stuff was repetitive. Some of the same people testified almost similar stuff. We couldn't talk to people about it. You know, someone felt that the jurors should be requested, and meaning they should have kept them in hotels. But as long as this jury has gone on, this trial has gone on, those people wouldn't have wanted to be away from their families for no 4 to 5 weeks. No, sir, no, ma'am. Get me out of here. I would know. So people were mad that the jury wasn't sequestered and kept in like a hotel. And it's nice that I didn't know that the judge makes sure the jurors get lunch. So that's nice that they get lunch and they get breaks. And, you know, the judge is like, you guys are doing this to try and help us out. So I couldn't be a juror. I wouldn't have wanted to do it. I would have been like, nope. And a lot of times you got to realize the jurors don't know what court case they're going to hear. You know, they really don't know. So some people are probably trying to they figured it out because it had mentioned that his trial would be around this time. And do y'all remember there was a lot of jurors that was interviewed, talked to? So yes, everybody, I appreciate y'all. I'm actually giving myself a little time before I have to leave out. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. We updated you guys on everything. That's nice that the judge is paying for their lunches. It's interesting how Diddy spoke. That is to try and show his charm. It is what he was saying. You're doing a great job to the judge. But then, you know, it is what it is. And I appreciate you too, Paris. You've been hanging in there with me. But yeah, once I'm at doing stuff, I may be able to listen to what's going on. And that way I need to be able to listen to what's going on. That's why I'm thinking about 3, 4, or 5. So that way I can hear what's going on. Y'all know I have to listen to stuff so I know what I'm talking about. And then I'll play a video and it tells y'all this is happening. The Diddy spoke up today. Diddy thanked the judge. So yeah, I have to listen too. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. But yep, I have about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour before I have to get out of here. But everyone, I appreciate you guys. Be blessed. Focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. If you can come back later, Paris, great. If not, I understand because we're both busy. Goodbye, everyone. Be blessed. Be safe. Be around people that love and appreciate you. Bye. Thank you.